Sally Vaughan sings How Does It Feel to Be Free before we join David Hall-Green for our late news bulletin, after which Hawkins finds himself involved in a blood feud.
A new uprising in the troubled Philippines amid allegations of a plot to assassinate President Marcos. Up to 20,000 left homeless by floods in the western United States. 9 people killed in a horror crash on the notorious N3 route between Harrismith and Villiers. A wrap-up of the day's major local and overseas sports. And uproar down under over an unusual entrant in this year's Miss Australia contest. Good evening. Civil strife involving breakaway elements of the military is brewing in the Philippines following the island nation's largely discredited elections 2 weeks ago. The Manila headquarters of the army has been occupied by troops loyal to the country's Minister of Defense and the Deputy Chief of the Armed Forces. Defense Minister Juan Enrile and Lieutenant General Fidel Ramos claim they are not staging a coup, but have renounced their allegiance to Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos. They say Mr. Marcos rigged the elections, which ostensibly give him a victory over opposition leader Corazon Aquino, and accuse him of also planning to arrest Mrs. Aquino and assassinate other opposition figures. The president has countered these moves by stating that his government is still in control and has accused the dissidents of being involved in a plot to kill him. Mrs. Aquino has meanwhile called for widespread civil disobedience, including a general strike, to pressure the Marcos regime into relinquishing power. In Washington, support for the Philippines opposition movement was given voice in the form of an anti-Marcos demonstration. More than 300 people took part in the march, among them former members of the military police who have resigned and now oppose Marcos. Over 20,000 people have sought shelter from flooding in Northern California after an embankment broke on the Yuba River northeast of San Francisco. The latest flooding, caused by a week of relentless storms which passed through the state from the Pacific Ocean, began after the embankment gave way. Water spilled into 2 small Californian towns in the area, and many residents fled to seek refuge at Red Cross shelters in nearby communities. The water is up to rooftops in most areas, and people were rescued by boats and helicopters after they climbed onto roofs to escape the torrent. Officials report the latest storm have claimed 13 lives and injured about 100. And still in the United States, a U.S. Air DC-9 airliner skidded off a snow-covered runway in Pennsylvania and ended up with a badly dented nose. But the only injury among the 23 passengers and crew was when one man was hurt during the emergency evacuation. Crew members hurried to lock the inflatable escape chutes in place after the jet skidded to a halt outside the international airport at Erie. The United States Space Agency NASA may never know what caused the disastrous explosion which blew up the shuttle Challenger unless key parts of the spacecraft are recovered from the ocean. This was said by a senior official of the agency at the investigation into the incident as it continues. Salvage boats and submarines are still searching for wreckage of the Challenger off the coast of Florida, but experts are most interested in recovering the shuttle's solid fuel rocket boosters and external fuel tank. A new theory advanced recently by a specialized technical journal suggests that the Challenger may have been struck by a partially disconnected booster rocket and subjected to its searing exhaust flame. The booster could have been affected by the sub-zero temperatures prevailing at launch time, which the senior engineer in charge of their construction had warned against. French authorities have seized a ship which was believed to have carried British mercenaries and an arms cache to Sierra Leone. But a French justice official today said the ship was not carrying war weapons as had been previously reported. A search of the 666-ton Silver Sea revealed that only a few jeeps with towing equipment, transmission material, and military uniforms were being transported. Crew members were detained and are being held along with their ship at the military port in Brest until the authorities decide whether or not to lay charges. The only arms discovered on board were 2 or 3 weapons for self-defense, some daggers and knives, according to a French justice official. An American recently convicted of spying for Red China has committed suicide. The The retired CIA analyst Larry Wu Tai Chin was found dead in his Virginia prison cell. Chin said he had passed on secrets for more than 30 years in the hope of improving Sino-US relations.
I thought I did the United States a tremendous benefit and advantage. So conscientiously, I do not have regret. To convert an enemy into an ally is a tremendous performance that can be done only in a unique position like me. If I can stay in the United States without going into jail, I would stay in the United States. But now on second thought, if I was given political asylum and there's executive clemency, I may be willing to go back to China.
Chin was convicted on 17 counts of conspiracy, espionage and tax evasion. He was born in Peking and became an American citizen in 1965. He was the first American to be convicted of spying for China. From Japan comes news that Mr. Shigechio Izumi, regarded as the world's oldest living person, has died on the small southern island of Tokunoshima. The old man celebrated his 120th birthday in June last year and was honored by guests who gave him a banquet to celebrate the occasion. Mr. Izumi is listed in the Guinness Book of Records as the oldest authenticated centenarian ever recorded. 9 people have been killed and 14 injured, 2 of them seriously, in a bus accident on the HARRISMITH Warden Road. The bus collided with a large truck about 25 kilometers outside of HARRISMITH. The accident occurred on a stretch of road where construction work is in progress, and a police spokesman said it resulted from the driver of the lorry failing to obey a deviation sign. 5 men and 2 women who were passengers in the bus were killed in the collision, while the other dead, both of them men, were traveling in the truck. 13 of the injured passengers were taken to the hospital in HARRISMITH, while another was admitted to a hospital near Bethlehem. A marital row has left a young Bloemfontein couple dead. Constable Andre Smit and his wife Belinda, both aged 22, died of stab wounds after a quarrel in the Moorewag police flats in Zaastron Street. Their 20-month-old baby is in her grandmother's care in northern Southwest Africa. China's traditional Lantern Festival was brought into the 20th century this year. In Peking, the festival featured lanterns using electronic and laser beams. A Chinese Lantern Festival will never be the same again. All the traditional elements of Chinese culture were there, but nowadays the dragons have acquired lights and other electronic gadgets. China's Cultural Revolution has catapulted the nation into the heart of modern technological achievement. Modern innovations such as radar screens and space satellites featured strongly in the festival, and China seems to be preparing for another great leap forward. The streets of Johannesburg took on a festive air this evening, and thousands of people came out to watch as Rao's rag procession made its way through town. This is the first time in South Africa that a university had a night procession. Sam Reddy was there.
Spectacularly decorated floats made their way through Johannesburg this evening to mark Rao's 20th year. Included in the procession were 3 teams of drummies, 2 bands, and a rag queen and her princesses. Students prowled for collections, and all for a good cause. There were delicious monsters, and everyone was generally having a good time. And in Port Elizabeth, strange vessels took to the water when UPE students had their Everything That Floats competition. Humid Beach was a scene of the action as students hurriedly got everything prepared. The name of the game, everything goes as long as it floats. But before the craft were put to the test, a stringent buoyancy test had to be passed. Then the race was on, and even though competition was fierce, not a single captain stayed with his sinking craft.
Durbanites were treated to the sight of vintage motorcycles rumbling into rather than out of their city today as the 16th annual Business Day Castrol Bike Run came to an end. This was the first time that the event was turned about and run from Johannesburg to Durban.
For 140 tired but cheerful competitors, the 16th annual Business Day Castrol DJ commemorative run is something of the past. Even those 20-odd motorcyclists whose magnetos or belt drives called it a day along the route said they had enjoyed the event, which for the first time was run downhill from Johannesburg to Durban this year. First to arrive at the finish in Durban North, while storm clouds were building up, was Jannie van der Mescht of Pretoria on his 1917 Indian Power Plus. He was followed home closely by John Fletterman on a 1920 ABC. And the lone lady competitor, veteran stalwart Betty Richmond, was also in the leading bunch on her 1934 triumph. By the time the middle order was greeted by the hundreds of spectators, the latter were huddling under umbrellas. And the finish, after over 600 kilometers, must have been a welcome sight for the motorcyclists.
Well, Arnold, what sports news have you for us tonight?
Well, David, the Nissan Shield result is history by now, but things are certainly hotting up in London. Gerry Coetzee seems to have still the anti-South African elements, and his fight with European heavyweight boxing champion Frank Bruno looks to be a reality.
It's here in the vicinity of Marble Arch and Carnaby Street in London, where the Coetzee camp is in the final stages of preparation for Gerry's fight against Frank Bruno at Wembley on the 4th of March. He impressed during his sparring session yesterday, and though he had to hold his punches against the 21-year-old Glenn Crawley and the weaker but faster-moving Yank James Dixon, Gerry hit the bag and punch ball extremely hard. Although Coetzee had put on some weight, he was still in a very fine condition.
Well, I haven't put on that much, but I've maybe gained a kilo or so, but then again, Bruno is a guy pumping iron and he's going to try and push me around, so, you know, a little bit of extra weight is just going to help me.
Well, I think he's looking very good. He's looking probably as good as he did when he won the title from Dokes. And he's had a lot of sparring before he came here, a lot of road work. En daarna, wat dan?
I think the important thing is that here we look upon sport as sport. We don't allow politics to come into it.
It may not be the Cold War, but sparks are certainly flying between the US and the Soviet Union once again. This time the differences are being settled on the sports field. Russia's Sergei Bubka's ongoing deal with American Billy Olsen has resulted in yet another world pole vault record. Bubka cleared 5.94 meters at the Los Angeles Times Games to better Olsen's old mark. How long can these lads keep it up?
Good run. That's it. A new world indoor.
Marvellous. Everton dashed Manchester United's hopes of moving back up the English First Division log by beating Merseyside rivals Liverpool 2-0 today. But the weather played havoc with the fixtures and 14 matches were postponed. Other results: Coventry 3, Southampton 2, Liverpool 0, Everton 2, Queen's Park Rangers 1, Luton Town 1, Sheffield Wednesday 1, Tottenham Hotspur 2, Portsmouth 1, Oldham Athletic 2, Stoke City 0, Charlton Athletic 0, Wimbledon 0 and Brighton also 0, Manchester United 3 and West Bromwich Albion 0. But the weather in Mexico proved to be just right for a home victory against the Soviet Union. Javier Aguirre scored here. The Russians nearly netted this one, but failed to make up the deficit. And here at home, Arcadia with a 4-2 aggregate won the BP Top 8 trophy when they drew the second leg of a final 1-1 with Wits at Ellis Park. Earlier, Arcadia had won the first leg 3-1 in Durban. In NSL Castle League matches, African Wanderers beat Klerksdorp City 2-1 in Durban, while Amazulu scored a 2-0 win over Pretoria Callies, also in Durban. Border runner Stephen Donald led a record blitz at the Marina Salt Ultramarathon in Port Elizabeth today. This report from Les Franken.
More than 300 runners lined up for this grueling event this morning. And in the field were the likes of former Comrades winner Pete Foster, the PE Club's Colin Goosen, Rhodes University's Chris Whitley, and of course Donald. It was this group that fought things out for most of the way. And Border and Oxford striders Donald made his intentions known at an early stage. He covered the standard marathon distance in a good time of 2 hours and 27 minutes. Little wonder the sponges came as a welcome respite. The winner, Donald. He covered the 52 kilometers in a new record time of 3 hours, 1 minute and 52 seconds. That betters the old mark by more than 5 minutes. It's followed home by Whiteley and Foster. Cliff Hopkins of the PE Club won the veterans section. His time of 3 hours, 16 minutes and 16 seconds was also a record. And not to be outdone, the first woman across the line, UPE's Beverly Milan, also set a new mark with a time of 3 hours, 44 minutes and 56 seconds.
And still on the road, Johannesburg athlete Ernest Chela has won the Olsen's Peninsula Marathon for the second year in a row. Second was Ephraim Sabisi and third Willie Mankaya. First one home was Lindsay Waite, while Arthur Limas won the veterans section in record time. The race is decided between Greenpoint and Simonstown. Southern Transvaal bowlers have made a clean sweep in the Rembrandt van Rijn South African Women's Masters Singles Tournament, which ended at Plettenberg Bay this afternoon. In the final, Maureen Hershowitz won her second Masters title by beating Ada Gatti 21-19. The bronze medal went to Pauline Price, who beat Colleen Grendon of Southern Natal 21-19. Willie Island was in great form at the Babsfontein Grand Prix for off-road bikes today. He's the provincial winner of the annual event. Second was Jeremy Davis and third Butch Hirsch. Cameraman Mike Herbert captured the action.
The Grand Prix lived up to its reputation as one of the toughest on the off-road calendar. Riders who had to cope with everything from dust bowls to quagmires coped admirably. But inevitably, the rescue services were kept busy as the course took its toll. Controls were strict and the competitors were monitored every kilometre of the way. Speed and control were the keys to success as the riders blasted their way through the rugged farmland course. When all was said and done, it was not so much the winning that counted. Just to complete the course was an achievement to be proud of.
And now cricket. Transvaal retained the Nissan Shield Cricket Trophy when they beat Western Province by 7 wickets in the final at the Wanderers in Johannesburg. The home side was left to score 231 runs in the allotted 55 overs, and they passed this total with 7 wickets standing. For Western Province, Kenny McEwen top scored with 66 and Peter Kirsten contributed 44 runs. Alan Curry took 2 for 43 in the Province innings. Henry Fotheringham played a key role in the victory with his 71 and unbeaten Clive Rice added 59 not out. Eric Simons impressed most with the ball. The rookie pro Mark Wiltshire fired a 6-under-par 66 third round in the Barclays Golf Classic at Sun City today. His total of 213 leaves him 3 shots off the pace set by Mark McNulty, who leads the field on 6-under-par 210. Fulton Ullum is second on 212 after he ended today's round with a birdie for 73. Irishman David Fairty is in sole 4th spot with Phil Simmons, Rick Hartman and Trevor Dodds on 215, 1 under par. Just a reminder that you can pick up the action in the last round tomorrow at 2:30 on TV4. Solo sailor Bertie Reid is at it yet again. He's favoured to win the historic first Stanek South Star race from Hout Bay to St Helena and back. Ed Herbst braved a bout of seasickness to get this footage.
This event may lack the glamour of Reid's previous round-the-world exploits, but there's no doubting that Biltong Bertie and the other 3 skippers in the race will have their work cut out to complete the course. Sailing Max Mures, the first-time single-handers, has set out in more or less identical yachts. The quartet raced to the island of St Helena and back to Cape Town. Reid is helming the only fully sponsored entry, Seaboard Energy. Britain Paul Rogers is sailing Spindrift, Tony Abbott skippers Moonshine, while Ian Duncan at 55, the oldest of the foursome, is on Adamant. The winner is expected back in the Cape in the first week of April to coincide with the Cape Town Festival.
Well, that's all from the sports desk, and we'll be back on Monday. David.
Thank you, Arnie. This year's Miss Australia competition promises to be one of the most unusual of its kind. One of the contestants, who will be a thorn among the roses, is determined to drag his way into the world of glitter and glamour.
The latest Quest entrant has all it takes and more to vie for the coveted title. The rules simply say you must neither be married nor a mother. While age and eligibility might leave room for argument about marital status, there can be no doubting 22-year-old Adrian Flock has ever been a mother. Karate exponent and weightlifting Adrian decided on impulse to enter the Quest when an organiser came to his Eastwood salon canvassing support. He says he's always admired the work of the Spastic Centre and has never understood that the privilege of raising money for the charity is the exclusive domain of women. Now, with his sights fixed firmly on this crown, he's busy organising functions and looking for a sponsor. His only worry, the rule that says candidates making a final must wear evening gowns.
Well, if it gets to that, well, then we'll wait and see. But I think I'll be judged as a male and I'll have to wear a suit or a tuxedo or whatever and be dressed like that.
So you won't shave your legs then?
Oh, no, not at all.
In the 2 days since entering, Adrian says he's already been the butt of all possible combinations of wisecracks. He takes them all in good humour, happy that anyone who counts in his life knows that he's just as macho as most Aussie males.
And finally, a West German cobbler has well and truly earned his place in the Guinness Book of Records. 72-year-old Richard Senschel has the largest private collection of miniature shoes in the world, and this is no small feat. Over the years, the cobbler has made over 1,001 pairs of shoes, which are on display at his home in Butzbach. The miniatures are a third of the size of normal shoes and are modelled on designs that date back as far as 1,500 years BC. They cover a wide range of designs, from the Chinese royal period to jogging shoes worn by Princess Diana and tennis star Boris Becker. And that's it for this late news bulletin. We wish you a good night and a pleasant weekend. Good night.
I'm just thinking of those unshaved Australian legs. Anyway, no killer goes unpunished, even if his victim deserves to die. And it's up to Billy Jim to bring a well-motivated murderer to justice in tonight's episode of Hawkins.